Eileen with The Real Las Vegas, and I am here with Dr. Nina Tabor, also known as the Good Witch Doctor on Instagram, and her company is Tribe with Roots. And she is a physician here in Las Vegas that you are going to get to know today, and it is going to be so good. So I first have to just say it's so amazing, I think, the way that we met, because I was introduced to you through a local women's organization. I knew of you. We had never met, and then a friend of mine had a wedding. Yes. And I saw you, and I'm like, oh, I know of you. I need to introduce myself. And you and your lovely husband and me and my daughter were glued to the hip all night.
And I'm so grateful for you for that. I had someone to hang out with.
Yes. But it was amazing because I feel like Las Vegas is so small.
It is.
And so, you know, in other places, what do they call it? That 6 degrees of separation. In Vegas, I think there might be 1 degree of separation.
Everywhere.
Yeah, it's so small. So I want people to introduce you to people, because I think what you're doing is amazing.
Thank you.
And I just want them to kind of get a behind the scenes look of what it is that you do and who you are.
Thank you.
So, how did you end up in Las Vegas?
Not planned. My grandfather passed away.
Oh.
And my grandmother was here by herself, didn't drive. And it was the year 2005. I had just gone through a divorce, and I felt it really heavy in my heart. We couldn't get her to move up to the rest of the family, which I am from the Pacific Northwest. I was raised in the rainforest up there, and it's quite a different atmosphere than here.
Oh, yeah.
So her old bones and, everything she knew was down here. And so I took a leap of faith, and I came down to take care of her. And best thing I ever did. She was my best friend. We did everything together. She lasted another 12 years. And I made a life for myself here in that time, and I'm here to stay. I absolutely love it here.
Yeah, I do too. And I think that people kind of have either your story, that they end up here and then end up loving it as kind of like a pit stop.
Yeah.
And then it just grows on them and they never leave, or they come in and they're out pretty quickly. So, and then I just have to get straight to the meat of why we're here. Yeah. So when we met, you kind of started telling me what you did. Yeah. And I know that you do Chinese medicine, which is a very unique thing, I think, in Las Vegas. I don't personally, not that there aren't, but I don't personally know any other Chinese medicine doctors. And then I didn't know that Chinese medicine doctors were considered physicians. So, I mean, can you kind of...
In Nevada.
In Nevada,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So can you kind of explain to me, because some people might say, I mean, even like your Instagram name, The Good Witch Doctor, because that is what people would look at you as, which, I mean, I love that you took ownership of that and just got that right out of the way right off the bat.
Not by my choice, but I own it now.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that just the fact that you are here and you are thriving shows that this community needs physicians like you. Yeah. So what exactly is a Chinese medicine doctor?
That's a great question. One of the reasons why here not a lot of people know about us is Nevada is actually one of the hardest states to get licensed in. You have to become an Oriental medical doctor, so we're called OMDs, and not all states require that to do acupuncture. Some states require a much shorter time frame. They don't have to do the herbology piece of it, and they can be a licensed acupuncturist. What the main difference is that an OMD can do diagnostics, internal health, prescribe medications, natural medications, and decoctions, we call them. which are like teas.
Okay.
And we are federally certified herbologists as well. We have to do that. So it's a very difficult job or position because you have to be somewhat of an organic chemist by nature. You have to have that science mind to pass those boards.
Okay.
I think it's got a 30% pass rate on the first try. It's very, very difficult. And so that weeds out a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so the Western Biomedicine Federal Board we have to take as well, which is what Western doctors take. So we have to pass their board, and then we have to pass 4 more boards.
Oh, wow.
So when people kind of say, oh, you're not a real doctor, I'm just like, I took 5 times the boards that your real doctor takes. So it's I don't really get offended, or they just don't really understand because it's so much work and so little accolades, I guess, for lack of a better word. There's very, very few of us who do the good work.
Right.
Yeah.
So you spend a lot of time, I would assume, kind of unraveling things that people have been told about what you do.
I used to. I don't do that so much anymore. I just let them have their beliefs and judgments, and I'm okay with that. It's not going to change anything that I do, and it's not going to change the treatment for my people, and I like to educate, which is why I do things like this.
Yeah.
But I don't try to convince anybody anymore. I think when I was more new in the craft, I would, but today I just tell them, if you're really interested, come and try it out and see the difference.
Yeah.
And then you'll know.
Well, and even just walking into your space, it has such a calming environment. I mean, it's almost like you just want to curl up. I mean, kind of like we are in this couch right now.
Yeah.
You just want to curl up and like relax and rest. And I mean, it has such a great feel.
I wanted that. For first and foremost, every decision we make here is passion driven. So it's all from the patient's point of view, the experience. It's not just getting healing. I want them to experience the healing. And then secondly, I spend 12 hours a day here. I want it to be comfortable.
Right.
And it's and when people walk in, I want them to feel like they're stepping away into another world, because typically by the time you come to a witch doctor for healing, you've tried everything else, and you just need that something different and something that's not like what's out there. So we try to have them come in here as like a sanctuary, and really the conversations we have are tough. I work with people wrestling with suicide and who have been human trafficked and abuse, and we got to make a safe space for that, and that's really hard to do when you're in a very clinical setting. They get that white coat syndrome, and so every angle I can use to break down that barrier without having to say anything and making it safe for them is really important and special. And I think that's, I mean, obviously I think that's how medicine should be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you yourself have a very powerful story of how you kind of used your own philosophy in medicine and your own training in the medical field to heal something that you had. Do you mind to share that story?
I don't mind at all. So I was diagnosed in 2013 with a very rare cancer, a breast cancer. It was also in the triple negative category. And so...
and what does that mean, triple negative?
Triple negative means there's typically 3 types of major breast cancers that are hormone fed.
Okay.
And it means that for each one of those 3 hormones, I came up negative, which means if they don't know which hormone is feeding the cancer, they can't give you a blocker and turn it off.
Gotcha.
So this was not easily treatable.
Okay.
To add complications, it was a very mean, aggressive cancer. It grew at the rate of 82%. So for perspective, the average cancer grows at a rate of 10%. meaning every 100 days it's 10% larger.
Wow.
So every 100 days mine was 82% larger. So it's growing very fast and very aggressive, and they didn't know what to do. So I wrestled with, being in this vein, you put a lot of weight on this, but when you're faced with an acute situation, we are great at preventative care, chronic care, but we are not great as Western medicine in acute and emergent care. And so you need both. There's not a this is better than that. You need this for preventative and chronic care. You need that for emergent and acute care. And I was kind of in this weird in between. The irony is that I was at the epitome of my health at that time. I had been vegan for 3 years. I'm not today. I was very athletic. I was very fit, and cancer does not run in my family. So we're not sure how. I was doing everything right. So I had to have the mental journey of, I did everything right. I've been so healthy for so long.
Yeah.
Why me? Why now? So there was a very big mental journey as a piece of it. To fast forward, there was an added complication. I had an MRI accident in the middle of the whole ordeal. Just finished chemo, and 3 weeks after, I did 20 rounds of chemo. And 3 weeks later, ended up in an MRI accident where I was cooked alive. And so I then had a bout of 16 surgeries and procedures over the following 3 years. So it was a fight for my life, plus the cancer, plus, all the complications. And so I did do many surgeries, which is Western medicine. I did do chemo in the beginning.
Yeah.
But what I did not do is I did not do any medication whatsoever. I didn't do any painkillers, not with one single surgery, not with any of my double mastectomies. I did a lot of acupuncture, herbal remedies. I did essential oils. I did hypnotherapy. I did every kind of massage, Reiki, alternative that I could get my hands on. I had a beautiful community that rallied by my side I had some acupuncturists that I would get home an hour out of surgery and they would show up at my house and stabilize my body. And today, let's see, what are we, 8-9 years later? Mm-hmm. I'm completely cancer-free. I'm not in remission. I'm not, I don't go to annual checkups. I have no cancer in my body. And
wow.
When I was diagnosed, they gave me a 4% chance to live 10 months. And I did talks around the community about how I'm handling it, because I was such an odd bird then. I still am. And they had red flagged my files, meaning terminal.
Yeah.
So, and I said, no, I'm not dying. Stop treating me like I'm dying. I'm not going to die. I have things to do here. And I just had this inner knowing, like, there's so much more to do and what I want to accomplish. And so I kept my eye very forward. I was finishing up med school at the time. So I was cancer. My grandmother was dying, finishing med school. My son just started college. It was a rough period of time in and out of surgery. And many people in my life said, why don't you stop going to med school? It's taking so much. And I said, because then the cancer wins. I'm not giving up my life for this. I have a future, and I don't want everybody to keep telling me I don't have a future. So as far as I'm aware, I've met 2 other people with my kind of cancer, and they both did pass away within 10 months. So that was a very unsettling reality.
Yeah.
And so I went through my whole home and started giving away everything. I didn't want my parents, I didn't want my son to have to go through my files and I realized, why do I have all these high heel shoes for? I haven't worn them and why so many things like that. And you take a good look at your life and you're like, why all the accumulation and for what? And I think still to this day, I'll look around the house for something and be like, oh, was that the Great Purge of 2014? I think I gave that away at some point, So it really taught me perspective. And I have a new lease. In 2 of my surgeries, I passed away, and I had a near-death experience, and they clearly brought me back. And they were very different experiences, but they led me into shamanism. I saw what I saw, and I know what I know. And that led me into a very spiritual path, very different than the corporate life I had lived before. And I can say, look, in reflection, because it turned out okay, I can say that journey was a huge gift for me.
Yeah.
I would never be emboldened to tell people that cancer is a gift, especially when they're struggling through it. But for my life and where I landed, what I made of it, what I chose to create out of it has turned into a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And in all directions. Is that kind of what you're looking for?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
well, because I know even the night that we met in person, you know, because my daughter had a kidney transplant almost 10 years ago. And I know that, you know, we were talking about just all things medical and, you know, how you don't sometimes get a lot of support in a Western medicine, you know, kind of spectrum. And like, I know for our family, if it hadn't been that we do really have a tribe of people, you know, that it would have been a whole different story. It would have been a whole different, you know, conversation that we had. And so I appreciate, even though I don't understand maybe what it is that you do on, you know, on a holistic level, I so appreciate you taking that step to take back control over your own health, your own spirituality, your own mental health. I mean, all of those things that have to work in concert together to make a whole person, you know. And so, and I know a friend of mine, Larissa, I mean, she is just a delight to be around. And because I think I learned at her wedding that you were her doctor.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
She actually saw me when I was an intern in med school, and she's followed me from clinic to hospital to clinic since. And now here, she's a beautiful, beautiful being, and just as much as an inspiration to me.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, she is just a joy. Yeah. And so, I mean, I always find myself connected to people for a certain reason. Yeah. Do you know? I mean, I know for a fact that we met that day for a reason, and we wouldn't have without Larissa. And that was a whole nother, I mean, we met in a leadership group for, you know, the Nevada State Realtors. And that, you know, was a year-long process of us getting to know one another. And I want to say I met you like right after we had completed that year-long, you know, journey together. And so, I mean, it's amazing. And I know that the people who come to you, most of them, you know, from what we've discussed, which has been very little, but it seems as if they don't have anywhere else to turn.
I'm the last stop. I'm a witch doctor, so I treat, just to clarify for your audience, I am obviously treat the physical with acupuncture and herbal remedies and as an internal medicine doctor. But I also have a master's in psychology, and I am a certified shaman. So when they come here, I'm treating the whole person. I'm treating their physical, their emotional, their mental, and their spiritual. And I spend an hour with every single patient. And a new patient, I'll spend 2 to 3 hours in their first diagnostics, and then every follow-up, I spend the hour with them.
Yeah.
I've worked for clinics where I saw 4 patients an hour. I've worked in China where they had us treating 90 patients a day.
Oh my gosh.
It was not fun. I could easily treat 4 people an hour if I was profit driven.
Yeah.
But I am a passion driven doctor, and it is more important for me that the patient gets my full attention and they have time And I get the really hard cases. I get the cases that they can't find help out there.
Yeah.
They're frustrated. They're angry. They've been at it for many years, if not a lifetime. I get the patients that other doctors don't want to touch. Like I mentioned before, some really hard cases because pain has emotional imbalances attached to it. And there's a lot of spiritual deficiencies. And we don't lift in anybody in a specific path. We lift everyone in whatever their path is. Whatever I believe is for me and myself. And whatever your belief system is, I honor that and lift you in your belief system.
Yeah.
But some people don't even know what that is to them, what that means.
Right.
They're detached. They're dissociating out of coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
They're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
So we look at where the patient comes in. Are they in crisis mode? We get them out of crisis and into stability or into survival sometimes.
Yeah.
When they're in survival, then we move them to stability. And then if they're stable and secure and starting to feel healthy, then we move them into thriving. We don't stop until our patients are thriving. And that some days looks like acupuncture, and some days it looks like hypnotherapy, and some days it looks like shamanic journeying. It depends on where, they feel they need the most help with.
Yeah. So I know nothing about what a shaman is. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah. The easy answer is a spiritual coach. And there are different kinds of shamans. So the type that I am is a what's considered an ancient practices shaman. My family, my mother is from the island of Sumatra, Indonesia, and so I pull in a lot of what we call Jamu medicine, Indonesian medicine, and kind of amalgamate it with my Chinese medicine background. And then I also was a martial artist. I was a competitive fighter for 17 years. So there's a lot of discipline and training. So I kind of pull all those pieces in a spiritual sense. And I use a lot of ancient traditional practices to do that. There are what's called neo-shamans, which are kind of the new modern shamans today. You'll see they're the astrologers, the crystals, the light workers, the Reiki practitioners.
Okay.
Not all of them are considered shamans, but if they choose to dedicate their life to a spiritual path and spiritual coaching and helping people find their path, then they would get the training and certification for that. And then there's the one that I'm mistaken for the most, which is a plant-based or plant medicine shaman. So because I use plants as literal medicine, I'm mistaken for that, but I am not. Those would be what most people think of, the ayahuasca ceremonies, the psilocybin, the mushrooms, the kempo, bufo, and all that kind of stuff. And I don't dabble in any of that.
Okay.
Mine is strictly ancient practices with these kind of Chinese herbs.
Okay.
And ironically, I'm not very well versed in Western herbs. So I think people are kind of disappointed when they ask me, what do you think of this? And I'm like, it's not in my repertoire. I have 5,000 herbs I got to keep track of, so I'm not really good about adding more to that plate. Unless there's direct contraindications to what I use, obviously. I'm going to know that.
And then do you work with like people's physicians?
Absolutely.
Western medicine physicians?
I love it, yeah.
Okay.
There's several in town that I will, that are very friendly, and we'll, I have several that I refer to, or if I refer to and want to work with, and I absolutely love that. But then there are also many in town who are not friendly towards a witch doctor or a Chinese medicine doctor, for that matter. If you're, there are clinics here that are a lot more westernized to bridge the gap. And they're absolutely lovely, but most of the Western doctors struggle with what I do. Right. Some are coming around. I think functional medicine is starting to introduce the concept of treating the whole person. I think integrative, when you hear the word integrative in Western, that's their way of saying we get it, and we're trying to integrate more. But it's still a stigma attached to it, and it's going to take me a little bit of time, I think, to bridge that. But
and
absolutely.
But I think that the more that people try to understand their own bodies. And,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it does take something kind of traumatic. Like, you know, we went through with our daughter, you went through with your cancer diagnosis. I mean, maybe that is what kind of sends you on a path maybe to look for alternatives, to look for other things that may work, you know, because I mean, I know we spent, you know, several years like trying to figure out what is the best route for us to go, what is the best way to keep everyone healthy, you know, I mean, and then like as I got older, starting to take some of these, you know, medications for things like high cholesterol and things like that. And I thought I was going to die, you know, I mean, because I felt so bad. Yeah. I mean, but you know that you have to stay healthy, you know, to whatever extent that you can. I mean, I have a long life to live. Yeah. I have, you know, grandkids and great grandkids to see born and, you know, all of these things. So I want to stay as healthy as I can for as long as I can. And sometimes traditional medicine doesn't give you that. Yeah. And so then we kind of all have to go on our own journey. But I think that knowing that you do work with, you know, traditional physicians probably would make people feel like, oh, okay, that's good. Now they can combat their health from 2 avenues instead of just one.
Yeah, I have a recent story working with doctors. I have a patient who has a very unique situation. He just started having seizures last year. And the doctors have done several MRIs, several tests, can't find anything, nothing wrong with the brain. And here we have we have a scale that measures hydration. It's through 3 ultrasonic waves, and it can measure the hydration. Why most doctors don't measure your hydration levels is a little bit alarming because it's very, very vital to our health. Yeah. So most of my patients here are scarily in the high 30s, low 40s and hydrated, and you should really be closer to 60, 65, 70, right? So we measure this gentleman's hydration.
Yeah.
And it's above, he's overhydrated, which now causes other complications, which we rarely see here in the desert. We live in the Mojave.
Right.
And and his body fat was extremely low, about, I think it was 5.6%.
Wow.
Extremely low. Young man in his mid-30s. Say young man, my son's that age. This is a very unique thing. Now, the doctors are all looking at his brain because he's having seizures, so they're looking at his eyes. But I'm looking at his blood. I'm looking at his fat percentages. I'm looking at his lifestyle. And I said, I think, please take this note. I wrote him because I knew he was going to know the words, and I said, please take this to your physicians because they're looking at the wrong things. Your blood's diluted and you have not enough fat in your body, and your brain needs fat to burn for fuel. Right. So what was happening was his brain was getting not enough fat and nutrients, and so it's a deficiency syndrome, and so we call that in Chinese medicine, we call it internal wind. It's how it was creating wind in his body. It could be spasmings, it could be a stroke, it could be seizures. And so he was able to start getting his symptoms resolved because somebody was looking at him differently than how you just follow certain protocols. Right. They would not have caught his hydration levels because they're not doing those measurements. I
didn't even know you could test hydration levels.
I do it every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very, very important. I'm going to say something very provocative, and I'll probably get a lot of backlash for it. But in my experience, about 85 to 90% of all ailments can be rectified with proper chronic hydration, chronically being properly hydrated. People are so chronically dehydrated into very extreme levels that their body misfunctions. Yeah. And it is a very, very important part of what we do, teaching people how to drink water. I know that sounds silly, but most people don't realize the body absorbs water at a rate about 4 ounces every 10 minutes. So if you drink more than 4 ounces within 10 minutes, you'll absorb 4 ounces and eliminate the rest of it. So even if you do hit that 80, 90 ounces of water a day, most of it's not getting absorbed into your body.
Right.
And you're not actually getting hydrated. It's very frustrating. So if you've ever heard somebody, I drink water, but all I do is urinate it right out.
Right.
That's why. So I tell them, slow down, sip. When you drink those 4 sips, stop, and at least wait 10 minutes, and then you'll take 4 more sips. Teaching people how to do things very naturally and very effectively and changing their life. I look for the trifectas of deficiencies, you know. If they come to me and they say, I have insomnia and I have constipation and I get leg cramps or restless legs at night, it's instantly magnesium deficiency. Take this magnesium, take this much before you go to bed, and magically their 3 symptoms go away.
Yeah.
But you have to have a conversation with people to get that information.
Right.
And I think we're really missing the boat when we have these, spend 10 minutes in front of the doctor and they're typing on their computer while you're talking, and they're not listening to you, and they're not answering, and they're missing a lot of information. And so people have a right to be frustrated with that.
Yeah. Well, and then my experience with it is there's always a pill to take, and my body doesn't respond.
No, because
to
you're an
those
organic
pills.
being. Those are synthetic. You're putting synthetics in an organic being. It's just as bad as putting organics in your synthetic vehicle. We're not designed to take synthetics.
Yeah.
And can you solve a problem? And is there a place, time and place?
Right.
Of course, I will not bash Western medicine.
Right.
However, there are a lot of people today are taking pharmaceuticals in the way they should be taking supplements and vitamins. And it's and they're not taking their vitamins and supplements. And they could have prevented themselves from getting themselves into crisis care. Once you're in crisis care, you're going to need the medications. But even look at diabetes. It's very well known. You can manage it with exercise and diet, but people either they don't know how to, or they have emotional blockers that prevent them from doing that, or they think they're eating healthy and they're eating mostly inedible materials, which is unfortunately very prevalent in our Western culture, especially in North America.
And I think that somewhere along the way, we got used to just doing everything easy.
Yeah.
And so if it's easy, then we'll do it. Yeah. And it's I mean, and I'm guilty myself. You know, it's easier to take a diabetes drug, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, just as an example, than it is to diet and exercise, because they've made it so easy to eat badly, so that you really have to be conscious of how you cook, how you shop, how you prepare. I mean, just it takes time.
And now we're back to the emotional component.
Yeah.
Because people gain weight and it's and they don't feel well, and then they don't feel good about going out, and they don't want to be active. And a lot of people misunderstand, you know, when you're talking about the whole weight loss, is you need to feel good about yourself first, and then you'll be more naturally active and you'll want to do more of those things to get out there and take care of yourself. But when most people look at it like, oh, I'll lose the weight and then I'll feel good, and that's backwards.
Yeah.
And it's mostly because we do not have great avenues for mental health unless they hit crisis mode. You know, we in Western culture, where we don't really talk about it as much, that's starting to change. I'm starting to see more and more come up, and that's great. But people don't have avenues for getting that kind of help and having those kind of discussions, and or even the programming of not asking for help, you know. And so it is socially more acceptable to take a pill for something than to ask for emotional or mental help to tackle something on their own.
Yeah, and I know my generation, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and I said, well, in my generation, we were taught to just suppress whatever feelings you had, not to express.
Suck it up,
Yeah, exactly.
I know, I was born in the 60s.
Yep.
I know this.
Not what you needed, not the things that you needed to feed you, to express, to, help resolve issues or whatever. And I do find, like, with my younger kids, that they are more expressive. Yeah. And it's, at some times.
We were good moms.
Yeah,
we had to teach them to do that.
And sometimes it's hard because they're expressive when you don't want them to be. Or, but it's really, to me, it's so joyful to be able to come from how I was raised, that if your hand is slammed in a car door, you don't make a sound because you don't want to upset anyone, to now they, just vocalize every time they're upset. But, it's been such a dramatic change, I feel like, from generation to generation.
Yeah. Every generation we do get more expressive, and it is a little. Sometimes I do take a step back, and my son, he's a soon-to-be 30-year-old firefighter, but he's got all the emotions, and I'm like, who is this kid? You're so cool.
Yeah. But you gave him the space.
It doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah, you gave him the space to be who he is instead of who you wanted him to be. Yeah, exactly. and that's what we have to do. But even, like, I know with myself, it took me a long time to be able to be like, oh yeah, you have a voice. You can use that voice. Yeah. So I appreciate you so much. And one other thing that I wanted to mention, because I said, we didn't meet by accident. We were meant to meet at the time that we met, and we were sitting there at this wedding. And
you talk about the art. I can hear your thoughts. I know you're going to talk.
My daughter had a long sleeve shirt on, didn't she? Or
I think so. Yeah, dress. But I have a picture.
Yeah,
I have a picture.
And so there's a picture of the two of you. She's got
the mandala and the sleeve.
You both have the mandala, and you both have these.
Flower of life.
Yes, you both have these same
it's
arm.
It's rare. I've only seen one other person. I know there's a lot of people out there, but I've only come across one other.
Yeah, but same arm. And it looks identical.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my gosh, like we kind of.
It's probably the beat that medical, thing. Anthem.
Yeah, but it was so cool.
Yeah,
and I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. I love that you stopped listening to what the naysayers were saying and just, moved on to what that you're meant to do.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of gumption to go against an entire industry.
Yes, it does.
I'm not going against it, but I'm just swimming upstream a little bit. That's all.
Yeah, and I think that there will be some who go upstream with you.
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah. I'm not alone by any means.
But especially now, I think that we are seeing more collaboration. And more like, okay, we can't do all of this. This is not working. We need to find alternatives.
Yeah.
So, if you need to find someone who you need, can guide you on this journey, point you in the right direction with, physicians who can prescribe pharmaceuticals and work on everything else and supply the herbs and supplements that you need. she's a good one. You need to reach out to her. But I just, I appreciate you so much. And is there anything else that you wanted to add?
You know, I wanted to circle back. You said one thing very poignant, and I didn't want it to gloss over.
Okay.
And you used the word tribe. You rallied around your daughter.
Yes.
And she had a tribe. And that is the entire concept. It was my cancer journey and that entire concept and a nugget of why we titled it Tribe with Roots. I could have easily said Dr. Tabor's office, like many doctors. But I said Tribe with Roots because really it's a tribe.
Yeah.
It's not me. It's me and you and the other people here and other doctors and your friends and your family and everyone involved that attributes to a person's health and healing.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult for someone to make it in isolation. And I've seen many people who don't have that support system who really struggle, and sometimes we're the only support they get.
Yeah.
And so I just want to let people know, don't underestimate that. It's one of the crucial elements to healing, is having that tribe, whether it's friends or anybody. And so here we have people who come in lonely and broken, and we're like, you're not alone in this journey anymore. You have us. And that sometimes is enough.
Yeah. Well, and we were talking before the camera started rolling even, that was a big issue with when COVID happened.
Yeah.
When everybody was isolated to their own four walls. Yeah. And, nobody kind of stepped outside of that to communicate with other people, to get encouragement, to get guidance. And I mean, people are still struggling with it. Yeah. I met with somebody this morning who's like, I haven't really left my house since COVID.
It's a long time.
It's a long time.
It's been a couple of years now.
Yeah, and you can't sustain a healthy outlook on life, a healthy lifestyle. I mean, you can't sustain not being surrounded by others who lift you up, for a long period of time. I mean, you need that support system.
You need hugs.
Yes.
We hug. I hug everybody that comes in. I hug my patients. Sometimes, I've had some of my elderly patients who live alone say, you're the only person that's hugged me all week. Aww. And that just is heartbreaking. But I'm going to keep doing it until they tell me I can't.
Yeah. Well, and so the other thing that I do need to mention is you're wearing your tribe.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is, these are markings. I don't have a chief headdress, but these markings are some in the tribe. They also represent leaves like herbology. And then if you look, there's a heart, because I really want everything to come out with loving spirit.
Yeah.
I have a warrior spirit too, so not everything does.
Yeah.
But I am in my culture and in my belief system, every tattoo is what we call blood pact. So when I'm getting tattooed, I go to spirit realm and I meditate. I don't actually feel anything. I'm not present. And my tattoo artist, I've gone to Aaron Neiman for the last 10, 11 years, and he knows to gently bring me back when he's done. And sometimes I even fall asleep. So but most of the time what we do is when we're tattooed, we make promises and blood pacts to spirit world of what we're going to do with that message that we're putting out in front of us. And so I take those markings very seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. And most people, they recognize my neck. They have no idea what my face looks like. I'll come into some place I haven't been in 10 months, 2 years, and I'm like, oh, you're back. And I'm like, okay, I know you don't know what my face looks like, but they just recognize. So it's very important that message it holds me accountable too.
Yeah.
And I'm not perfect. I'm human, as much as I hate to admit that. And I do things that I'm not always proud of, but I am honest with myself about that.
Yeah.
And I work on it and I try to do better.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, and so we're on that same journey. My whole journey is to be the best version of myself that I can possibly be. So if I'm learning and growing till the day I die, that would be the joy of my life to be able to do that.
I hope that for you too.
Yeah.
And fun fact, I got my neck piece on for my 50th birthday. So
so that's very new.
Well, somewhat new. Yes, it was just yesterday. Yes. Newer. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I recognized you from your dreadlocks.
Oh, yes. I miss them so much. I miss them so much. I did not want to let go of my dreadlocks, but they were getting quite long and quite heavy, and I'm always bent over people, treating them and doing my things and gardening, and I was getting a lot of really bad headaches, and I was in denial for probably about a year and a half, and I finally said, okay, I know it's time, and they were thinning my hair out. They were quite heavy, so and I have a lot of hair, but they were thinning them out, and so I cut them on shoulder length, and it just wasn't the same. It didn't feel like me.
Yeah.
So I painstakingly combed each one out with oils and conditioners, and I think it took me 1.5 a day. So it took me like 45 hours total.
Wow.
And so I saved this much.
Yeah.
I saved this much.
Yeah.
Which was from here. So it was all locked up, but I just went very slow. And of course, much of my hair came out. But so this is my native hair, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But I
gorgeous.
I miss my dreadlocks.
Yeah.
They're what was special about them was that when I lost all of my hair in cancer.
Yeah.
And when it started to grow out, I had never cut it. So everything that grew out down to here was from everything that had grown out since cancer. So when I cut them, it was a little bit cathartic and a little bit sad, and letting go of, I'm no longer this cancer patient, I'm something else now, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And so that was a journey in and of itself. Yeah. Those silent journeys that you don't really...
And it's those things that you let go of that or hold on to that you don't really realize until you let it go.
Yeah. I
saw you still have, I saw you still have a few.
They're little babies.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
And I am so glad that we got to sit down and do this.
Finally.
And that we actually met in person. I honestly can't imagine now not knowing you.
Oh, thank you.
So I appreciate you. And last question.
Yeah.
Are you taking new patients?
Sadly, no.
Okay.
We have been overbooked for a little while because I have a very hard time turning people away.
Yeah.
But I am one being, and everyone here is saturated.
Yeah.
We still have some room for Reiki and light work and shamanic work with our other shaman, the Neo shaman, but I cannot right now. So I do have a wait list. We hope to open. We may look to open after the end of the year. So it's going to be a little while. So with that, we have started launching some medicinal wear clothing line, and we make protection pieces and things. So if people want a piece, or they want a prayer piece or a protection piece, we are still, we have those kind of things. So because I can't take patients right now, we do offer community. Sometimes we'll do community events where I just come out and sit with the community and do talks and discussions and chats and whatnot. And so I just tell people, watch the event calendars, and if you're interested it's a lot of them are free. Most of the time they're like $15. I try not to be that, if you want to come talk to me. I'm not like that at all. I try to make myself accessible.
Yeah.
And I wish I could clone myself, and I wish there were more witch doctors. You have to be a brave soul to take this on.
Yeah.
And then you also have to have a scientific mind and be passionate, and it's a hard combo to find, but if anyone wants to intern, hit me up.
Okay. So she's looking for interns.
I'm not but I know the world needs
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
So I would, I'm very, very willing to share everything I know. I'm horrible at social media. My staff is constantly trying to get me to put my tidbits out there so that people don't have to book an appointment to come in. It's not about that. I'll share whatever I know. It's just, like the water. It's an easy thing, but why people don't know that, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So
there was nobody to tell us. That's why.
Yeah. I think it's, again, time consuming, right?
Yeah.
So they don't want to take the time. And I don't think they're lazy at all. I think most doctors work very, very hard. I don't think people realize how hard the clinics work them.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to survive the day with all the people. But I think because of that, because their time is limited and because they're overtaxed, they do rely on the internet. People go research this, go research that, and unfortunately, that's a little bit. It's just the world we live in right now.
Yeah.
So, I wish everyone would slow down just a little bit. Take one patient an hour. It's okay. You'll be okay. I do okay.
Yeah.
I have a thriving business, and I'm full.
Yeah.
And I take care of myself. It's financially lucrative. You don't have to be greedy.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be scared to work for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully they will.
Yeah, I hope so. All right.
Thank
well,
you.
if you need more information, your website is
tribewithroots.com.
tribewithroots.com. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I know my daughter's here to see you in a little bit.
Yes.
So
yes, she slid right. I think she was one of the very last to get in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I'm gonna enjoy.
I am too. I'm going to enjoy hearing about it. So look for the calendar events. You will not be disappointed by spending some time with this beautiful soul. So we will see you.